What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast. Katie Mox and Will Brinson here, joined by our Pick Show squad. Today, it's Alex Selelnick and Emory Hunt of Sportsline. The last episode, the Super Friends hashed out week 2 of the NFL season. You got Breach, Wilson, and Brinson. A lot of good takes there. Is Justin Herbert anti-clutch? I think more. It's
Emory got a Beachbody Stafford shout out on that episode. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Is it just, I tuned in, but I must have missed the, is Justin Herbert anti-clutch? I feel like Staley is more the anti-clutch coach.
Oh, yeah. Staley got dragged pretty aggressively.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to catch that episode, it is a fun one. You can watch it on our YouTube channel or the audio version, wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, feel free to hit subscribe and you won't miss another episode. All right, let's take a look at early leans for week 3 of the NFL. If we look at some betting trends and recaps, underdogs and road teams reigned supreme this weekend. Underdogs 8-5 against the spread. Road teams 7-6 against the spread. Road dogs, you love to see it, 5-3 against the spread. 13-6-1 on the year. Overs were king. We had unders that were really big in week 1, and then it kind of flipped. Overs were 12-2. Any thoughts? We'll start with you, Propstarz. Any thoughts on kind of these betting trends that happened in week 2?
Yeah, it was fascinating so far week of football. I thought there was a lot of overreaction week 1, especially from a prop standpoint as well. We saw a lot of teams kind of settled down. Certainly, as you mentioned, Katie, with the overs, I felt like teams kind of shook a lot of that rust off. Yeah. Not sure what's happening with Cincinnati's offense still, but the majority of other teams look to be a lot more cohesive, kind of what we expected. So gotten rid of some of those jitters and that early rust. So I think things are kind of trending where we thought they would be week 1, but just took a little bit of time to acclimate.
I feel like not having starters in the preseason is starting to get more and more concerning for week 1 of the NFL. And then by the time week 2 comes, it kind of regresses back to positive regression.
Well, I would say just at that point, I think it is. So we have a really small sample size in terms of number of years with just the 3 preseason games, right? Like this is a new thing that's happened recently. And I sort of wonder if this is like something that we won't know for, like a year or whatever. We'll might have a determination depending on how offenses look in week 3. But like, what if this is a case of the NFL is actually adjusted now to 3 preseason games, and that first week is gonna be the 4th preseason game, and then by week 2, these NFL players not all of them have been doing it forever, but like a lot of them were used to 4 preseason games, and so like now the natural sort of like, in other words, like, has there been a rhythm that's sort of been figured out where by week 2 the offenses start to click, or was this more of like, a matchup thing that we saw in week 2? I tend to think it's more of the former because, you have like Chiefs and Jaguars goes way under, but like Colts and Texans, the divisional matchup goes over. Seahawks Lions, we thought that game could be crazy, tons of points. The Titans are scoring 27. The Cardinals are dropping 28. I mean, like, they're just,
Emory, everyone. Yeah.
And like, Emory, I don't know what you thought, but to me, week 2 is way more enjoyable than week 1. Like, just in terms of the football, you had multiple overtime games. There were many more close games. It did feel like, just from a sort of a macro, anecdotal perspective, that the offenses were a little bit cleaner too, right?
Yeah, I think y'all all are on the same track and on the right track, and it really goes back to 2012 with the new CBA, the Cam Newton rookie year. Once we started to shut down all of the OTAs, mini camps, padded practices, we're seeing slow out the gate preseason, slow out the gate regular season, a lot more injuries than we ever remember growing up.
Yeah,
that coupled with all of the new training techniques, everybody's overtraining their bodies. So we're seeing a lot more. We're seeing more Achilles tears than we've ever seen before. More lat pulls and pec tears. So all of that
feels like ACLs are down and like Achilles are up.
And everything is like how we used to see one Achilles injury a football season. That was like career ending. Now everyone's tearing their Achilles. Everyone has calf injuries. And so I think it dates back to them minimizing all of the padded practices, which has now led us to this point, along with preseason, all those things like that. So, yeah, to make a long story short, all of that is why we're seeing teams sputter out the gate, and then week 2 and then subsequently week 3 will be more lines of what we usually see from the NFL.
Well, one thing I think is interesting too, Katie, is that so underdogs are now 15-14 straight up this season. Only 3 times ever, and we got 2 games left, right? So we got the Steelers and the Panthers as a dog. So if one of them, I guess both of them have to win to have the actual winning record versus a 500 record. But like since 1970, 82, 83, and 2003 are the only times underdogs have had a winning record through 2 weeks.
Wow.
I think what's interesting about this is we looked at this season, and by the way, the NFC is 6-0 against the AFC, which is
and I feel like the NFC was looked at as like the poverty conference.
Yeah. Well,
it's been a rough start for the AFC.
What I think is interesting from like a bigger picture perspective too is that we sort of had this idea. It's like, all right, there's 3 good teams in the NFC.
Yep.
And then like there's this like huge block of really good teams in the AFC. And we talked about this a little bit on the recap show, but like when you have Aaron Rodgers suffer an Achilles injury and go down for the season, and I don't think we should buy into the idea that he's going to come back for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go to the playoffs, but if they did, I mean, I don't think he's coming back. And then you have the Chiefs who are 1-1. The Chargers are 0-2. The entire AFC South is 1-1 or worse. The Browns, we'll see if they go to 2-0 tonight. But it's Bengals 0-2, right? The Bills are 1-1. The Dolphins moved to 2-0, but there's been this like shift in how we look at the AFC because now there is an opening with the Rodgers injury and the Chargers and the Broncos and sort of everybody, the Chiefs and the Bills sputtering out. It's like there's a playoff spot available for someone if that team wants to get weird and surprise some folks. And it's just a little different than I think we thought the AFC was going to look. And that's very early for that change to happen. It's largely the Rodgers injury, but also the Chargers struggling.
Well, not exactly the AFC, but when you talk about a wild card spot that's open, I feel like the Rams might actually in the NFC be making the playoffs this year. And I know, Brinson, you've been very high on the Rams, and I definitely was not high on the Rams. But even
nobody was.
Yeah. All right. Nobody was. Fine. Nobody was. But I was pretty impressed by them yesterday against the 49ers. I mean, in the second half, finally, the defense figured out how to get pressure on Stafford with some of those blitz packages, those Fred Warner blitz packages that they threw at him. But you look at some of their new guys like Puka, 25 receptions, the 3rd most through 2 games of the season in NFL history, and the most by any player in his first 2 career games. Like Sean McVay sneakily maybe got one of the best receivers in the draft.
Rams at plus 225 to make the playoffs is a good bet. I mean, they have a stretch of games they're going to have to like play well in, but like, and Matthew Stafford threw 55 times yesterday. That's not sustainable. 20 targets for Puka. Kieran Williams, 14 carries, 52 yards, and then 6 catches, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like they've got some guys who, 1, are going to win you fantasy leagues. 2 are better play. This is the hallmark of the Rams under less need. They have a bunch of stars, and when they hit on guys in the draft that are surprising, like they've done this on defense, they've done this on offense. When they have a couple guys who complement those stars and can play really good football, they're a good football team.
That O-line impressed me too. They got some young guys up front. Yeah.
Alex, I'm curious what your thoughts on Puka and Tutu, which is frankly sounds like a baby song, like a baby like a Mickey Mouse song. It's like Puka and Tutu, Puka and Tutu. I don't know. Just it sounds like how you would like explain to your like 5-year-old what poop and pee is. It's like, let's go Puka, let's go Tutu. There's like something like that. I don't know.
Oh, that's gonna get clipped on social and sent out. And you're gonna.
I will say this is probably the most unexpected or interesting 1-1 start to a season ever. Certainly no shortage of interesting storylines with this Rams team, but they've looked really impressive. Puka is on a record-setting pace throughout his first 2 games of his career. I'll be very interested to see, because Cooper Kupp is expected back in week 5, if he can maintain his role in the offense. Obviously, Kupp is going to be a target monster, but certainly with Stafford throwing the ball 40 to 50 times per game, there's room to sustain or support an additional wide receiver. You mentioned Tutu Atwell. He's playing very well as well. Tyler Higbee has kind of been the odd man out out. As far as pass catchers, Van Jefferson obviously too a bit, but yeah, Tutu and Puka have been really phenomenal. I'm really interested in that backfield too. Looks like the Rams have their feature RB1, Kieran Williams. Cam Akers, a healthy scratch. I don't think many people expected that after the great finish to last year's season. Looked to be finally over that brutal lower leg injury. Now he's potentially going to be on another team, which is fascinating. Kieran Williams looks to be a very good running back and certainly going to be a big-time fantasy producer and have some interesting props as well, being that feature RB. Can catch a lot of passes.
So the Rams have not run the ball very efficiently.
Yeah,
which is fine. It doesn't really fit with what, and they had two division games out of the gate for the Rams, and to go 1-1, I think the Niners just sort of have their number. I really think that the Rams are a great, look, I test with Matthew Stafford. No one stands for Stafford harder than I do, but you watch this guy, you watch him play right now, and he's playing like he played in 2020, and it looks like people are like, well, he's just dead, so he's over. It's last year, he's finished. He was hurt last year, and I think that the eye test backs it up. I think the stats back it up as well. He's being way more efficient, still going to throw some picks. That's just what he does. But it feels like they're pass protecting really well. And this offense, especially when they get Cooper Kupp back, if Stafford can stay healthy, it can be good enough to get them to the playoffs. So, go for it. Yeah.
Before we move on, scout report I had on Puka Nacua, I'm reading it right now. Tremendous hand-eye coordination, able to virtually catch any pass thrown his way, combined with his athleticism and his ability to let his feet die on the sideline. There's not a pass he can't come up with. Versatile option that can play any position outside of quarterback. Now, the issue with him was the first day of the Senior Bowl, he had probably the best catch of the Senior Bowl practice week. Problem was he hit his head on when he went down on the ground, he knocked himself out. But so he has missed some time with injury, so that's something to be worried about. And I look at my scout report on Kyrie Williams. He's my number 4 running back in last year's draft class. Fantastic all-around football player, top-tier vision and footwork. Both are consistently in unison. His feet helps him step out of many tackles, and we saw that play out perfectly in the short yardage goal line situation. So to your point, Will, this is why you're able to then trade first-round picks for God knows whoever you need, right? Because you're nailing the back end of the draft. So you hit it dead on because if you're able to do that, you're getting cheap, outstanding labor. I hate to use that term, but it's so true. That's why the Rams are able to stay competitive with that young team.
Yeah, round 5, pick 177. I'd be curious to see, and I'm sure we can get someone to pull this up, what his offensive rookie of the year odds are, because again, he's having a record-breaking year already, and it will be interesting, to your point, Propstarz, how it looks when Cooper Kupp comes back. I believe he had 15 receptions, and so you got to think he's going to cut into that target share, but maybe this is like a sneaky pick for offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Certainly so far through the first 2 weeks, he's definitely have the strongest claims so far. And yeah, if the Rams are going to throw the ball 40 plus times, they can certainly sustain another wide receiver. We saw it previous to Cooper Kupp. So yeah, I'm very interested to see when Cooper Kupp comes.
Wow, he's gone up.
He's
all the way at plus 650. He didn't start that way. No way.
He's probably like, I did like 3 tiers of sleeper, like different sleeper level offensive rookie of the year picks, and Puka wasn't on that list.
I didn't even see him listed. Yeah,
granted that was because Cooper Kupp wasn't hurt, but I think what's interesting about this list too, you see 2 quarterbacks up there, and that's it. Anthony Richardson's climbed up because he's played well, but he's dealing with concussion.
Yep.
And CJ Stroud is the next one at 15-1. No Bryce Young. That could change if he plays really well on Monday night. But it's the quarterbacks, the 3 quarterbacks that we thought would be in the mix for Rookie of the Year, even if they just played well, have not looked incredible through the first 2 weeks. Anthony Richardson, I think, has been, obviously the odds back this up, the best by far. But he also, 2 injuries already is a problem. I think Zay Flowers at 14-1 is still very much a reasonable bet there because – he's looked awesome in this Ravens offense. And I think Baltimore really hasn't gotten going the way that they can get going. They're still 2-0. They're stacking wins. I think the Ravens we could see as a team that kind of like gets this Todd Monken's thing figured out. Everyone gets on the same page, and they really start to explode offensively.
And they will get Keaton Mitchell back soon in the backfield, which adds that level of explosiveness that they don't have right now with no J.K. Dobbins. And,
Dobbins also an Achilles tear.
Right. And Justice Hill running to the back of every lineman he could find, you know what I'm saying, before he bounces and gets upfield. So they need that explosiveness. They'll get better as the season goes on.
Yep. Okay. Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
All right. Tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, we will look at some poor sucker who bet a large amount of money on the Bears and why this was a poor decision. But first, Sunday, it's week 3 in the NFL, and CBS features the next chapter in the AFC East rivalry between the Patriots and the Jets, or the Broncos taking on the Dolphins. You hope it's the latter. Get set for kickoff beginning at noon Eastern with JB and the guys on the NFL Today. All hail Sunday. The NFL is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. Who lost their wallet on Justin Fields? We'll tell you next.
We need the sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, before we get to some of the important news surrounding these games in week 3 or in actually in looking at the Monday Night Football games. Harry, let's toss up the somebody bet MGM.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I can confirm it was all not me that put $90,000 on the Bears money line against the Buccaneers.
At plus 120 as a dog too. At plus 120, you're going to risk $90,000.
Yeah,
maybe money laundering.
Maybe we don't have the graphic. But anyway, somebody, yikes, bet of the week. Somebody tossed $90,000 on the Bears money line. The Bears lost to Baker Mayfield, so maybe don't do that.
Question for you though, actually, Emory, about this. Like, one, yes, don't do that. That was a bad bet, but. What do you think of the Bucs so far? Because we had said on the show multiple times that the Bucs could have the worst record in the NFL behind the Cardinals. Both of those teams look better than we thought they would. They're now up 2-0. It's the first time Baker Mayfield has been up 2-0 in his career. Are these Bucs for real, or is it just that the Vikings beat themselves and then it was the Bears?
That's a good question. I probably say it's a little bit of in between, because the Bears had a chance in that game too. They jumped out to an early lead and we saw them have some success moving the ball down the field before they started to really shoot themselves in the foot. But you have to win those type of games if you're Tampa Bay. So we can't really knock them for beating who's on the schedule. So it's a little bit of both. Like, they could be bad, but they also could be this year's version of the Vikings or this year's version of the Giants, right? Especially in the NFC, where you're probably going to have that wide open 7th seed that's still up for grabs. So I feel like, as long as Baker can play like he did so far, and they find a run game somehow, a consistent run game, not on 1 week, off 1 week, I feel like the defense has shown it can be stable, but they just need an offense that also be stable.
They're a huge dog next week against the Eagles at home. Alex, I'm curious, anything you see in the trends with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? Because nobody knew what was going to happen with Baker. He is a little more aggressive downfield, which obviously Mike Evans 171 receiving yards this past week. Feels like he's maybe the more preferred receiver to Chris Godwin this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a lot more comfortable throwing to Mike Evans. If you guys recall, that was a play I actually gave out for our week 2 pick. So that was certainly a welcome.
That's called a setup. Yeah, let's go.
Thank you, Will. But yeah, looks very comfortable throwing to Mike Evans. I still think there's room for both of those guys. It's a very condensed target distribution. It's pretty much Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and then a bunch of secondary and tertiary options. Cade Otton, interestingly enough, is running a route on every single Baker Mayfield dropback. He has 100% route participation, playing 100% of the snaps. It just hasn't equated into any stats yet, but certainly something to pay attention to. But I think it's going to continue to be the Baker to Mike Evans, with Godwin kind of playing a secondary role in that offense.
What's been his? I'm just trying to look to see what kind of targets Otton's getting, because I'm wondering. He's got 8 catches on 9 targets, so he's been efficient. 7.5 yards per catch, so he's not exactly running deep routes. Might be a good, if you're dealing with a tight end injury in fantasy. Maybe a good look, or if you get Bucs Monday night first touchdown catch, little Cade Otton probably getting me 25-1, maybe first touchdown score. Don't hate that.
Certainly
idea.
Do worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to games that we're monitoring. Obviously, we will talk about that one as well. For week 3, probably the biggest line movement that we've seen: Rams at Bengals. Right now, it's Bengals -2.5, but it was 6.5. So we've seen a full swing here due to the Joe Burrow injury. Of course, he aggravated his calf there. Emory, any early thoughts on this game? It appears that Joe Burrow is not going to play.
Well, that's the thing with Burrow, and the reason why I took the Ravens last week on the money line was due to the fact that until we see Burrow be healthy and be Burrow, when he's able to get outside the pocket, evade pressure, and all those things that makes you like Burrow, it's going to be tough. He's playing with one hand tied behind his back, essentially. So this is a tough game to call. I would stay away from it because we don't know which type of offense we're going to get from the Bengals. On paper, yeah, the Bengals should beat the Rams, but until we know what's going to happen with Burrow and until we know which defense will decide to show up, because they also couldn't stop the run yesterday as well. Rams could easily run this ball against them, so I would stay away from this one completely.
So I'm going to go the opposite way, and by the way, like I'm trying to find the just sort of like the market for.
It's not like Joe Burrow has been that great in the past.
No. Well, no, but I mean, like I thought Burrow started looking pretty sharp once they sort of had to run the hurry up stuff. When they got down 2 scores and he was sort of slinging it around, and that's when I think he got hurt on a touchdown pass. Am I wrong? I think he threw. Did he throw it? He threw the end zone. I thought it was a touchdown to T. Higgins. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, you saw him pull up, re-aggravated the calf. There's a lot of buzz. I think Adam Schefter said it's 50-50 on whether he plays. This line has moved 4 points. The total's dropped down significantly. I think the Rams can win this game anyway. And I think if Joe Burrow is ruled out, and I don't think we'll have any idea if Joe Burrow is going to play until we get to, maybe even Monday, but certainly, their final injury report won't come in until Sunday or Saturday. And then you'll have reports about, Sunday morning on the pregame shows. There'll be lots of what's going to happen with Burrow. I would take the Rams now. I think that the Rams plus 2.5, you would love to get 3. There's a bunch of 1.5s out there. It's moving like crazy. I see there's a bunch of 1s out there. I see a 4 out there, which is, it's -188. So you probably don't want to bet that. But
I will say there was the trend last year, and it's too soon to tell if this carries on, but most teams, except for the Kansas City Chiefs, the week after playing the 49ers, a very physical defense, lost all of their following games. Now,
right.
I felt like at least for the first half of the game, the Rams weren't getting beat up by the 49ers defense at all. So maybe that doesn't play into it, but just something to consider.
So my theory on the Burrow taking the Rams now is, let's say Burrow plays. Like, and this line going to 2.5 is the books hedging, saying we don't know if Burrow's going to play. It'd be like it was, again, it was 6.5. But like, I think if Burrow plays, the line closes at like 4 at the most. Because the Bengals haven't looked good and the Rams have looked good. The look ahead doesn't factor in how well the Rams have played. And if Burrow doesn't play, the Rams are going to be favored by 2 or 3. Like, I mean, if it's Jake Browning against Aaron Donald, look out, pal. Well, what'd you have there, Alex?
Just going to say I have a lot more confidence in this Rams team, even if Burrow does end up suiting up. I think you kind of throw out what's happened historically. If we're looking at just this season, this Rams team has certainly played better so far. One interesting thing is Jamar Chase was the favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year at the start of the season. 2 huge duds for him back to back. Super fascinating, especially if he goes another week without Joe Burrow. Really interested to see when his production is going to pick up. So certainly a little concerning start for Jamar Chase.
Absolutely. Niners playing on Thursday night. You see Chris McCaffrey now 650 to be Offensive Player of the Year. Jamar Chase 29-1. I would wait and see if Burrow's playing before I take that Chase number. But remember, Jamar Chase was basically dead in the water for Offensive Rookie of the Year and went ballistic late in the year. So he's probably worth a stab later on, depending on what happens with Burrow. Niners open up -9.5 for Thursday night against the Giants. Your Niners did, Katie.
Yep.
It's already up to 10.5. It totals 45.5. I don't think it's high enough. I think that the Niners, Emory, are an absolute unit and maybe the best team in football. The only question we have with this team was, can Brock Purdy be the answer at quarterback? And I think he has put any concerns and questions to rest. and the Giants needed a franchise record comeback to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Down they're down 20-0 or down, and the Cardinals put up 28. The Niners are going to beat the brakes off the Giants on a short week at home
with no Saquon Barkley too. So
yeah,
that's you take away 98% of that comeback, and credit to Daniel Jones because he did play well in that comeback. It also makes you wonder, was it Brian Daboll calling the plays or was it still Mike Kafka? I know he answered that question post game saying that it was still Mike Kafka calling the game, but something clearly changed after halftime because Giants offense started to really find success and move the football and push it vertically down the field. All of that being said, this offensive line may get Andrew Thomas back or they may not. Either way, someone on this show told y'all that this game was going to be interesting because of this defensive matchup.
You did. You called it.
The Cardinals. I struggle to find points for the Giants in this game. I really think we may see a shutout here again. And you're right, 10.5 is not big enough, and also just why was Christian McCaffrey's number so small in the preseason in terms of his rushing yardage total?
Yeah.
What
that
happened?
was ridiculous.
It was under 900.
It's a joke. I mean, he's going to beat that by week 7.
Exactly. So, and he might beat it, based
might beat it on Thursday.
Based on our homeboy ran yesterday. So, yeah, this lay these points and take the under because I don't see the Giants scoring less. And if they really get blown out, then I'll look like a fool. But I could see this one being, 35-3, and we cover the under and we also cash.
I love everything that you guys are saying, and maybe just because I'm a pessimistic, Niners fan, I still think that 10.5 points or 10 points, whatever it ends. Yes, I agree with you that theoretically it's not enough points, but for a primetime game, double-digit favorites, it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. I mean, I think you keep, at least me, I keep riding the Niners team total over. It's hit in the last 2 weeks. They've scored at least 30 points in the last 2 weeks. I think they could do it again against the Giants. Like for the Niners to get the over 27.5, which is what I believe it is this Thursday night, I'll hammer that all day long. Even though I feel like the Niners can do this, I'm still not going to lay the 10 points. It's just too much for me. What do you think?
I was going to say briefly too, the Cowboys average, and Alex, you may be looking at Christian McCaffrey stuff for Thursday night, but Tony Pollard averaged 5 yards per carry, and he only had 14 carries in week 1 because they were up 40-0, and the defense was doing everything. And then James friggin' Conner, who is not maybe older than I am, ran for 123 yards against this Giants defense. The Niners are going to obliterate them on the ground.
I'm in full agreement. This was the first game that Christian McCaffrey played 100% of the offensive snaps since 2019. Wow. So certainly a welcome sight there. Obviously, he's had durability issues throughout his career. I think this is a potential spot for Elijah Mitchell to get some work, especially with the Niners being significant favorites on a short week. Not a spot you would want to really risk CMAC, where they're going to pretty much win the game, I think, handily going away. So I think this is a spot. Elijah Mitchell had 0 touches, obviously, yesterday. I think he could get some work in this matchup. So, yeah, I like the Niners to roll on this Giants team. Just not a lot of confidence without Saquon Barkley. Seeing this Giants defense that they really revamped in the offseason, spent a lot of money. Certainly did. Joshua Dobbs was just slinging on them, running all over them as well with James Conner. This Cardinals offense scoring 28 points versus Giants defense was pretty shocking to me. So just not a lot of confidence in this New York football team right now.
What do you think, Propstarz? Because obviously Saquon Barkley is the biggest injury to talk about in this game, but we saw Ayuk looked pretty injured through a lot of that games. Is this someone that maybe you're not going to look at for the following week? Debo was slow to get up on a couple of things. He had a monster game against the Rams. Are there any 49ers props that maybe you're looking to shy away from?
Yeah, it was interesting. Ayuk, unfortunately, was a little bit of a regression candidate coming into the week. I did like him a lot. Obviously, I picked him as a prop, but yeah, seeing Debo receive the lion's share of the targets there, I think the 49ers on a short week are really just going to emphasize getting in, getting out, running the ball quite a bit. That's why I think Elijah Mitchell is going to be more involved in this game plan. I just don't think they're going to really need to open up the offense to beat this Giants team without Saquon.
All right, so let's move on to one of the games that has a will probably lean more one way or the other based on how tonight goes. But the Saints at the Packers, Packers laying 1.5. So pretty close to a pick 'em here. The line opened at 2, total 43.5, down 1 point from 44.5. Saints, of course, play tonight for Monday Night Football. So we may see some line movement here. But Emory, you were pretty big on Jordan Love coming into this season. I think he's been very impressive so far. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this to me is about whether or not you could trust Derek Carr versus pressure. And we'll see some of that tonight and how much pressure the Panthers can get on him. But I feel like the Packers will be able to get to Derek Carr. And I don't also trust the Saints run game until Alvin Kamara comes back. So this is a one-dimensional type of approach. This is a game that the Packers should be able to win. And even though I don't have a play on this, I would lean Packers, laying these points. And also I would definitely trust that under too, because you have a very good Saints defense. You have a capable Packers defense going up against what I just outlined, a one-dimensional Saints offense. So I kind of like the under, but I love the Packers to win this one, regardless of what happens tonight. Unless America's quarterback gets in the game and starts next week.
Jameis?
Then you have to.
All bets are off once Jameis gets in the game. That's right. I mean, I think the Derek Carr. Look, everyone knows how I feel about Derek Carr. He's been terrible in prime time. He's not good against pressure. Probably has familial PTSD from when his brother played for the Panthers way back in the day, aka Mr. Mittens. He wore these dainty little white gloves and played quarterback for the Panthers. I think for this game, what I'm really watching is the Saints only gave up 15 points to the Titans, but they only scored 16. Right? I mean, is the Saints offense good? Or we don't know. We're still just 1 week of results with the Saints. I don't think we know anything about them. Is their defense really good, or is because we're not sure if the Titans offense is good? Is the Saints offense bad because we're not sure if the Titans defense is any good? And so I think this will be a very interesting litmus test going on the road in prime time against a rookie quarterback. And you could spin this forward to the Panthers and Seahawks game too. I would take the points of the Packers now because I think the Panthers are going to beat the Saints.
Ooh,
personally,
you do?
Yeah, I don't think the Saints are that great, and I think
the Panthers are.
I think defensively they'll get going against Derek Carr. He just struggles in prime time, and so I think I would get the 1.5 of the Packers now if I was betting anything on that game. Now, conversely, if the Panthers stink. That Seahawks line is 4.5. It will shoot up very, very quickly. If Bryce Young is bad, if he throws 2 bad picks again, and the Panthers are struggle on offense and struggle to protect pass protection, with the Seahawks likely getting healthier and the Panthers on a short week going out west, I think you could see a total opposite line movement there.
But that's the thing about. I mean, we don't have to talk about tonight's game. Obviously, it's happening pretty soon. But this Saints defense is pretty stingy, and then you look at picks. All right, fair.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I agree. I think. I just don't think we know anything about the Saints right now, or really even the Panthers. And so, if you are leaning towards the Packers or the Seahawks, I think in that particular before Monday night's game, you would want to make those bets now versus waiting, because I think if either the Saints or Panthers struggle, or this is a low-scoring, bad offense game, you could easily see a situation where those lines get a little bit bigger.
I got a question, Propstarz, because I already put this bet in, so I just need some assurance.
Or not.
Right.
Is it Chris Olave related?
It's never Saints offense related. Do you think Bryce Young throws over 188 yards?
Oh, for tonight?
Yeah.
I do think he throws over 188 yards, yeah.
I think he throws an interception too.
Yeah, it might be ugly. It might require some fourth quarter garbage time, but I think over 188 yards against the Saints is a fair price. Do you like the over there, Henry?
Oh, definitely, because obviously everyone looks at last week and it was 182 on 32 attempts, but I feel like you're gonna get better, and 188 is not. That's a college number. You know what I'm saying? You gotta at least throw 200 yards in the NFL. So
I would agree. Also, getting DJ Chark back, I think, will help take some pressure off. Having some speed at outside receiver. Really didn't see that in week 1 with Adam Thielen. Really can't separate at this point in his career. So I think just having Chark on the field, even if he doesn't make a lot of big plays, will open up the offense. So yeah, I definitely think, especially looking at the Saints back end as well, they have good safeties, but corner, I think they can give up some production there. So yeah, I like them to go north of 200 for sure.
All right, we are going to take a quick break here, but we'll take a look at some more week 3 leans when we come back.
Freddie! Surprise!
Dad!
What's going on with your son?
Wish I knew. Got a girlfriend I've never even heard of. When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
It's just not a good time.
Have you considered that he hates you?
Don't sit there! Those are Christian Lacroix pillows.
So we can't sit on the couch.
Not in jeans.
Right, so the Denver Broncos are 0-2.
Yeah.
People are I know our graphics department, we flashed something last night on the recap show noting that Nathaniel Hackett was 1-1. F around and find out, Sean Payton. And I love Sean Payton. I thought Russell Wilson looked a lot better. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at the production work here. That's a tough scene for Sean Payton there. I thought Russ looked a lot better he looked really good in the first half. He's like 19.3 yards per attempt, throwing accurately down the field. A very good sign if you hope that the Broncos offense can get going, but they still, gave up a bajillion second half points to Sam Howell and the Commanders, and you give up 37 in overtime to and I think Washington's a good team, but you just can't do that. They head to Miami. The Dolphins are -7 here with a total of 47. Alex, you're curious, any thoughts on Russ, this offense? I mean, I think I would lean towards the over here. Okay, that lines up to 48.5, down to 6.5 on FanDuel. That's a lot of points. Feels like these two teams might get involved in a shootout, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's some shootout potential here for sure. I actually thought this Denver defense coming into the season was going to be potentially the strength of the football team. Hasn't been the case through 2 weeks. So certainly I'm in agreement here, Brinson. I think this has some shootout potential. I was encouraged by Russ. You mentioned he was throwing the ball effectively down the field, to something we haven't seen since he's joined this Broncos team. Saw the big game from the rookie Mims. Did that on only 16 snaps. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays more in week 3. We obviously know this Dolphins offense, one of the more pass-happy teams in the NFL, having those two great speedy wide receivers on the outside. So, yeah, this certainly looks like a spot where there could be a lot of yards, especially between the 20s. So I think this will present a lot of potential prop opportunities as well.
Oh, but also should note Vic Fangio revenge game here.
Ooh.
I mean, they fired him for Nathaniel Hackett. He's an old crotchety man. He is not going to be. He's going to uncork some defensive stuff on Russell Wilson. I guarantee you.
No, and I feel like the Dolphins defense has done pretty good. Emory, question though: Is the Dolphins the most potent offense in the NFL after 2 weeks?
I would hate to play defense against the Miami Dolphins because you don't have enough fast people. You may have one dude on your defense that's fast, but they got 5. And it's like, man, we can't roll coverage to one side because this other dude runs a 4-5, while their guys run 4-2, 4-3, 4-2, 4-2-8, and are Olympic sprinters. So it's impossible. What worries me about this game, I think this has the potential to be the dumb game of the week. And we kind of saw glimpses of it from two separate teams. Russ wasn't the same in the second half after he got hit in the head when he fumbled. You didn't even see him go after the fumble or whatnot. I think something was wrong there. And how many snaps will Tua fumble under center? Like, what is going on with that? Like, balls hitting him in the hands, and he's just dropping snaps, losing possessions. You saw him have the weird where his ankle kind of got turned when he dropped back. This game could be something completely dumb. I will definitely stay away from it. But to your point in question, Katie, it's hard to play defense against This is what Al Davis had in mind when he was making all those picks with speed, trying to put so much speed everywhere. This is what it creates, a problem.
Yeah. Tim Hasselbeck had a great breakdown of a set of 3 plays on SVP SportsCenter last night where they basically lined up Tyreek Hill like kind of underneath the left tackle, like sort of just like an offset tight end sort of role, and did this sort of loop, like half loop motion through. And then Tua's getting the ball out so fast because they don't want him to get hit. and he gets the ball out to Tyreek really quickly. They run the same thing later that drive. This is a quintessential Shanahan, McDaniel, run a play to set up another play. The defense floods to Tyreek, and they drop it off to this tunnel screen for Jalen Waddle. He shoots right at the middle, could have gone to the house. And then they get down by the goal line, and they run the same thing, and it sets up Tyreek on this little route against Kyle Duggar, and he just catches a quick short touchdown. Mike McDaniel's in his bag. He's a great coach, and it's tough to defend.
What they're doing is playing CFL ball in the NFL with all those orbit motions, kind of not running toward the line of scrimmage, but if you sprint out past, on that little quick motion, the little short quick motion, the exit motion they call it, that's essentially like the forward motion in the CFL. Like, damn, I better bust my butt to get over there, otherwise I'm gonna lose this track meet. Well, you're gonna lose it anyway. But now you just vacated this whole space for these other guys that also are very doggone fast. So it's impossible to cover in the CFL, and it's impossible to cover the Miami Dolphins because of all that speed.
Well, who knows that better than anyone else is the Patriots, who just lost to the Dolphins last night. They are 3-point favorites over the Jets. Zach Wilson is just owned by the Patriots, 0-4 straight up against the Pats, 2 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. No big surprise that the Jets are using a little running back committee, 35% Dalvin Cook, 33% Breece Hall. Pats wide receiver usage, Kendrick Bourne, 51%. Absolutely love to see that for Bourne. Why are you leaning Jets money line here, Emory, is what I'd like to know.
Jets have more explosiveness on both sides of the ball than the Patriots. The Jets also have the more athletic quarterback in Zach Wilson. So
it's not saying much, but yes.
Right. So, but if Bill Belichick,
low.
if Bill Belichick
Brinson, least athletic guy on podcasts,
if Bill Belichick is going to send pressure, okay, Zach Wilson can get himself out of a jam, scramble, keep the play alive. Mac Jones is dead on arrival. Like there's no, he's going to eat so many sacks against this team. This game will be, I would also take the under.
Yeah,
this game
absolutely
will be so low scoring, and it'll be a defensive game. And we've seen the Jets when they decide that, hey, we're going to lean in on the run game. And again, they had, I took the Jets plus 9.5 against the Cowboys. And my reasoning was Jets defense, run game. Giants had some success early running the ball against the Cowboys. They should have some success. They kind of did. The way when that game got out of hand was the fumble that Dalvin Cook got stripped from, because you saw the Jets were able to have some success and move the ball. Once he got stripped and they went up, double-digit points, it was over. The bottom fell out. Yeah. I think this game will be a lot closer to where I can trust in a defensive spot. I can't trust Mac Jones, and I can't trust no one on a perimeter against their secondary. This is a bad matchup for New England. So I think we'll see run game and defense win the game for the Jets. I like them over the Patriots.
See, I'm on the Patriots here, and I want them. I don't think it's going to get much further past 3. I also agree on the under. The logic here for me is this is a must-win game for Bill Belichick against a team that he has obliterated, a team he hates more than probably anything else in the world. Like, I'm not sure there's anything Bill Belichick hates more than the New York Jets. Obviously they resigned with the cocktail napkin. We all know that. He loves to beat the Jets. He has to go win when they've had a questionable quarterback, whether it's like a young quarterback prone to make mistakes. He has absolutely dominated them. And I think what he's going to do is look at this game and say, we are not going to beat ourselves offensively. I'm not even like, I'm going to tell you not to make mistakes. I'm not going to allow anyone to make mistakes. We are going to run the ball 40 times. Mac is going to make plays where he has to, and we are just going to throw some junk at Zach Wilson, and we're just going to sit back and play and be patient, and we'll find points where we find them, but we are going to let Zach Wilson make a mistake, and I don't think the Jets can completely hide him if the Pats sell out to stop the run. So I like Pats in the under here.
Propstarz, what about props that you are eyeing for this? Interesting to look at the RB usage, 35% Dalvin Cook, 33 Breece Hall, and then you've got Kendrick Bourne with this 51% for the Pats. Obviously the secondary for the Jets is pretty locked down, although the Cowboys had their way a little bit. What are you looking at in terms of props?
Points are going to be hard to come by in this matchup. I agree with Emory regarding the Jets having the advantage from a speed perspective and explosiveness perspective. Certainly when we're talking about Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, this Patriots team is so slow. They cannot run the football whatsoever. I agree, Brinson, they want to run the football, but that offensive line is just opening up 0 lanes for Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott. It was painful to watch New England try to establish the run. As a result, we're seeing Mac Jones attempt 40, 45 passes, which New England does not want to do. That plays right into the Jets' very strong secondary. So I think they want to run the football. I just don't think they can effectively. And as a result, you're going to have to see or rely more and more on Mac Jones to air it out. And he just has really no viable options at receiver. Hunter Henry, I think, is probably his most consistent, reliable target there. But yeah, I just think this Jets team, like Emory mentioned, is a lot more explosive, more talented offensively. I do agree the coaching edge I would give to Bill Belichick from the schematic component as well.
Sure.
Well, maybe not after this first 2 weeks, but yeah, I just think Breece Hall is going to be more involved. I think he looked very good, even though not yesterday, but in week 1, I still think he's close to returning to injury. I think he could have a big performance in this matchup. So I personally side a little closer with the Jets.
This game may be 12-9.
Yeah, 12. Sure, 12. I mean, I like the under a lot more. Like I had the under listed on our rundown, just talking about like look ahead spots. But it's like I'm not sure how much it can come down. Like it's 37.5. Like, I mean, I guess it could close at 36. It's not going to go up. And Belichick ain't going to try and score. Like, he's not going to be aggressive with this offense. And I think the Jets will probably do something similar where they will, there's going to be a lot of runs and a lot of punts. And if it goes over, it's because of some fluky stuff, like a pick, like 2 or 3 pick sixes by the Patriots or even the Jets. Potentially, Sauce Gardner had one he should have gotten and screwed up on it. All right, Falcons and Lions. Really fascinating game. Two teams. The Lions, of course, now 1-1 after losing in overtime to the Seahawks. Falcons 2-0. Pretty huge game for Detroit, just because we talked about it. If you go beat the Chiefs, how do you respond at home with those 2 games? The Lions are -4 here, open -4.5. The total has come down full point from 46.5 to 45.5. Actually, Lions down to -3.5. I mean, I was going to say, obviously, that I have an early lean to the Falcons here. I think both of these teams all year long and for different reasons are going to play a lot of games that are inside a single score. The Lions defense has gotten better for sure. And we saw it against the Chiefs, but maybe the Chiefs just haven't really gotten going on offense. The Seahawks were able to move the ball pretty effectively. Atlanta doesn't want to try and score, but can if they need to. I just think you're not going to see the Falcons or the Lions play a ton of games that end up in blowouts. And so if I'm getting more than a field goal with one of these teams, like if it were flipped and it's Detroit at Atlanta, Detroit's getting 3.5, give me the Lions. But I think this game should just probably be 3 because of the home field advantage. Probably lean towards the over here as well.
This is a really fascinating matchup to me. One thing we saw yesterday, I don't think it's getting enough attention, is the Falcons played from behind, and they actually looked okay doing so. They still ran the football, but we saw Desmond Ridder open it up a little bit, throw the ball down the field, and he was fairly effective against a pretty good Packer secondary as well, I might add. So that was impressive. Also, we finally saw Bijan, not finally, but week 2, we saw what I expected week 1, which was Bijan had 72% of the snaps in that backfield. Tyler Algier had that big week 1 performance. Bijan led all running backs in rushing yards. I do want to mention that I gave that out at 30-1 odds yesterday, so that cash for me. Thank you very much. But yeah, very impressive performance from Bijan. I expect him to continue to have close to a 70% snap share in that Falcons offense, which runs the ball very effectively. Then we're looking at this Detroit Lions running back. David Montgomery is injured, appears to be a multi-week injury. Very frustrating I was very high coming into the week on Jahmyr Gibbs. His usage continues to be puzzling, in my opinion. You draft this guy in the top 10, supposedly build your offense around him, but he's only having six rushing attempts by the time the fourth quarter around before Montgomery checked out of the game. I think that's unacceptable. I really think the Lions need to figure out how to get the ball in Gibbs' hand. They basically were just throwing him screen passes 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. Very
nine targets.
There. 9 targets, but they were all really close to the line of scrimmage, Brinson. So the targets are encouraging. The usage, though, or the creativity, I thought was lacking there. I really want to see him be the focal point of this offense, especially with Montgomery on the shelf. We saw a lot of Reynolds at running back, Craig Reynolds, I believe, even after Montgomery checked out of the game. So, yeah, I think Jahmyr Gibbs needs to have a minimum of 12 to 15 carries in this game, plus 5 to 7 targets. Kind of do what Atlanta did in week 2, figured out that Bijan is the cornerstone of that offense, give him the lion's share of the touches. What happened? Huge performance from Bijan. Played a big role, obviously, in Atlanta having success. So, need to see that from Detroit.
Emory, I'm curious. I think do you have anything against the spread here? And also, do you think it's a pass blocking thing for Jahmyr Gibbs, where they're just worried about him in pass pro with back there? I haven't gone back and watched. I'm not 100% sure. I just didn't know if you'd spot anything there.
That's always what the coaches will say. Hey, we don't trust him in pass pro. I got an idea. How about we don't ask him to pass block? You know what I'm saying? How about that, right? How about we call scat protection and you just send him out? Either you're going to stop blitzing or you're going to cover this explosive back in the flat. That's the best way to neutralize the blitz. I love this game, by the way. I'm taking the Falcons because the Falcons have the better defense. They have pass rush. And the Lions lost James Houston. They really struggle to get pressure on a quarterback. And coaches are just phenomenal beings because with Bijan Robinson going over 120 yards rushing, and it still felt like he didn't get the ball enough. So it's like, man, if he's doing this, how about we keep giving him the football, right? Then you don't have David Montgomery. It's like, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity to give my highly selected first-round pick the ball, even more so. That's a game changer. So this game, to me, indoors, is going to feel a lot like that 1990 or 1989 Bo Jackson versus Barry Sanders Raiders Lions game where both backs go over 100 yards. They're challenging one another. Oh, you have an 80-yard run? Here's my 85-yard run. So I feel like this game will be explosive plays, bonanza. I do like the Falcons because their defense, to me, I can trust their pass rush. And it's going to be a fun, entertaining game, especially from a running back's perspective because we get to
running back porn.
Exactly. Yep. We got and shout out to Craig Reynolds. I have scout report on him from Kutztown and what he was able to do as a kickoff returner. His story is well documented. The amount of years that he spent trying to get on this roster and getting this opportunity. He's a real good prospect coming from the Division II ranks.
All right, guys. Any other games that we were looking at for leans? I'm looking at this Eagles and Bucks game. I actually kind of lean towards the under in this one. It's at 46, 45, depending on where you're finding it. And I just feel like without Shane Steichen, this Eagles offense doesn't look the same. I'm not saying they're not good and that they shouldn't be 2-0 right now, but Jalen Hurts went from about 8 yards per attempt last year, 246.7 yards per game. Within 2 games, that's dropped down to 6.5 yards per attempt and 181.5 through 2 games. And I also just feel like this Bucs team is going to come down to earth against the Eagles defense. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. Obviously, the Buccaneers benefited a lot from turnovers, which I don't think the Eagles are necessarily going to give them. So I'm going to lean under on this one. But any other games that y'all are looking at?
The Cowboys game. Lay the 12.5 points with the Cowboys.
Wow.
Get on that now.
Large spread.
Yeah,
listen. I'm afraid of laying double-digit favorites like that.
Listen, Katie, I do college football. It's the commonplace to lay these big whatchamacallits. You see 30-point spreads, and then you feel comfortable laying them. So this one, yeah, you're right. NFL, that's disrespectful to have a double-digit point spread because that's a blowout in the
12 too. 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this week though, we've got the Niners 10.5. We've got the Chiefs minus 13.5 against the Bears. Cowboys minus 12.5 on the road. And there's several 7 points. So this is just one of those weeks where there's like a bunch of big spreads. Underdogs have been covering a ton, and now you get a matchup, which I think Emory's eyeing, where it's like Micah Parsons, who's on a tear right now.
Make him the logo.
Yeah, I would lean towards the Cowboys right now too. I don't know how high the spread can get. Like a 14-point road favorite is pretty outrageous in 2023, but like I would be nervous. I would not want to take the Cardinals.
No. The Cowboys are not the Giants. I don't think they're going to be able to put that amount of points on them.
What you got, Alex?
Just going to say, after watching CeeDee Lamb just get open at will against that Jets secondary, I think he's got a great shot to lead the NFL in receiving yards this year. I also think he's worth a sprinkle for Offensive Player of the Year because he could have a historically good season. He looks just absolutely unguardable right now. Very impressed with that performance from CeeDee Lamb.
I agree. I actually had him on my list of Offensive Player of the Year bets to make, and I think to your point, two things about the Cowboys, and I made this. I think I noted this last night, and then maybe I said it on radio. But Mike McCarthy, we've seen him call plays in Green Bay, and when he did, almost every time you would see the targets really, really condense on an alpha receiver, whether it was Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson or even like Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, and that was part Aaron Rodgers, but also that goes into the play calling. And CeeDee Lamb is an alpha. And I think it's entirely possible that Dak just locks in on CeeDee Lamb all season long. I also thought Tony Pollard getting 25 carries was notable, especially in a blowout, because they kept I think Mike McCarthy's just going to run Tony Pollard and feed CeeDee Lamb. And so 14-1 most receiving yards, as Alex knows, I think that's a really good bet. And you still get a 35-1 Offensive Player of the Year. If he is that alpha dog in this offense and the Cowboys are this good, I think those are absolutely good looks. The Chargers Vikings game. If you want to see where all the chalk is for DFS this week, you talk about the silly game of the week. Yeah. I think producer Harry noted that this game. What did he describe? This is like the Trix Rabbit versus Lucky the Leprechaun. Like which team is going to give it away the most? Like
literally.
I mean, I wouldn't bother with the point spread because it's live betted if you get anything above 3, like on both sides. The total opened 51, and I was gonna say that that's a silly number. It's up to 54.5. That's so many points in an NFL game, but you could not pay me to take the under in this game.
No.
Oh, the Vikings are now the Chargers are -1. Now the Vikings are -1.5.
It over too, and give the Chargers all kinds of points for free.
This game you could see 75 points in this game. This is where all the chalk and DFS will be. Both teams are obviously pretty desperate, and both teams play weird games. Like I wanted to take the over at 51, but it's just I don't think it's there. Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, from a prop standpoint, when there's matchups like this with really high totals, obviously two explosive offenses not playing a lot of defenses, I like to, and this applies to DFS as well, as I'm sure you know, Brinson, I like to find cheap pieces in this game. So obviously the stars are going to have large numbers because it's reflected in the total being so high. But yeah, finding guys kind of ancillary options who are going to be involved too at a discount is kind of where I'll be looking to attack in this game.
I had TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, maybe
guys like that, yeah. KJ Osborne,
yeah.
Quentin Johnson potentially, or Palmer, the third wide receiver on the Chargers.
I would probably lean under here because you look at the pass rushers for the Chargers. On paper, the Chargers defense should blank Minnesota, but we know garbage time Cousins will rack up somehow 300 plus yards. And on paper, the Chargers should boat race this Vikings secondary. Mm-hmm. So I can see the Chargers winning this game 30-17, right? With Cousins getting his 500 yards receiving with 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and you know what I'm saying, passing, and Justin Herbert having his 228 yards, 6.5 yards an attempt with 4 touchdowns. I can see all of this happening, right? With the Chargers saving grace is that I think they can run the ball a little bit better than Minnesota. I don't know why they thought
getting rid of Dalvin Cook was a good idea,
right? And he's going to get better running the ball. This is it's going to be the dumb game of the week. But I can see this one being 30-17 on either side. But I will take the under, and I would probably lean toward the Chargers, not crap in the bed in indoor ideal conditions.
That's never a bet I want to take. Is the Chargers not to crap the bed?
But this is the perfect opponent to do it against.
Well, yeah, because the Vikings crap the bed maybe a little bit more.
No, the Chargers. Nobody
true.
tutus their pants more than the Chargers. Or is it Puka? Nobody pukas their pants more than the Chargers.
Nice bow, nice circular.
Like that.
There. We started with that. We end with that. That's dope.
All right, guys. On that note, on tutuing the bed.
You go tutu or Puka, pal?
Tutu or Puka. Yeah. All right. We're leaving now. Okay. Make sure you join us all week for more NFL coverage. Tomorrow, Brinson, Breach, and Wilson are joined by Pete Prisco to break down or maybe break apart, depending on how you look at it, his weekly power rankings on CBSSports.com. One last reminder to show us some love and hit that like button, and also subscribe to our YouTube page for everyone listening to the audio version only. Download, follow, leave a 5-star review. Tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. And we'll talk to you soon.